Hello, and welcome. In this video, I will be walking you through the approach you can follow to edit your own logic in the ecosystem.AI environment. Today, in this video, I will be showing you how to update a project, and then how to go and edit it in IntelliJ. As you can see here, I've signed into the ecosystem workbench. You can see I've got a number of projects already over here. In this video, we are going to be looking at the project called Recommender in the Deployment tab. Now, just to review the project, you will see that we have got 3 versions currently set up. The first thing that I'll be doing is changing and adding a new version. This is because we are going to be doing new work on it. So, now, change the version number and do an update. And if I refresh the project over here, you will see that we have now got a version number 4 added to the list. So, what I'll just do now, in order to describe the process, is to update the description with demonstrate, plugin, editing. If we scroll down to the plugin we want to edit, you will see that the endpoint has got some arbitrary description, and that the post scoring class has got what I'm just going to call test. Post score 1, we can go back later and edit it. There's no pre-score here, but this is just to show you what it looks like if you have got an empty setup. So, now that we've got it configured, we will now want to go and edit this logic. Instead of doing it inside the workbench, I want to do it inside IntelliJ. So, the first thing to do is to go and clone your repo from the ecosystem.AI GitHub area. Now, once we've cloned it, we will want to rename it for our local purposes. In this example, what I'm going to be doing is renaming the local build to the ecosystem runtime recommender. Let's just wait for it to clone the repo. Now that it's cloned the repo, I'm just going to move it to a new name. If you just check, you'll now see that there is a project created that you can go and edit later. You could now, for example, go and push this up to your own GitHub or GitLab or whatever other infrastructure you work in. So now, what I want to do is that I want to open up the project inside IntelliJ. You will see here that what I normally would do is well, let's just do it from here. I'll go open my project. Go to Projects. There is my project that I cloned and moved. You would have to just keep an eye out for any settings that you would have to change. For now, you'll see that I don't have my version control set up for this project, and we will do that later. The other thing to do is to trust the project, so that you will be able to open it properly inside your IntelliJ environment. And you'll notice at the bottom that it will be importing all of the dependencies for this project, and also indexing it so that you can open it. And you'll see here that there's a specific structure that we follow. At this point, there are probably 2 things to note. First thing is that all of the post score classes sit under the plugin.customer structure, and all of the runtime specific classes sit under the runtime structure. We will be looking at product master, because that is where the API is defined, and I'll be looking at that shortly. And as you can see, over there is that description that I showed you earlier. And here, you will see that there is already a recommender, but we are going to be changing the recommender name to show that you can bring in a class from the server. So, the first thing we now want to do is to set up the plugin. We will do it from Preferences. Under Preferences, you go to Plugins. And in Plugins, you can go to Marketplace and just search for ecosystem.AI and it'll appear. It looks like, as soon as you type in the word ecosystem, it will show you our option. It is worth your while to read through the documentation provided here. Even though it's pretty brief, it gives you a step-by-step guide as to how to set it up and how to do things, including details about the repo that this points to. Now that I've done this, you will want to go to Tools, and then go look at the server settings. At this point, you will want to make sure that you've got the correct username and password configured, and which in a moment we'll show you, so that you can see how the projects are pulled from the server. Once this is configured and set up, you will notice on the right here that there is an option called Prediction Projects. When you open up Prediction Projects, you will see that it will take just a moment. And then it will retrieve your projects, and it will list them in a table for you. Here, you can see which projects are available. In future releases, you will be able to select a project straight from here, and then you can start editing it and configure your settings from that point on. But for now, you can just view your projects to see what you have available. At this point, what I am going to do is that I would just want to inspect one more file. And that's the plugin.properties. You will want to make sure that you've got your project correctly set up in here, if you're going to want to pull any of the code from the server. So that means that if we go to the workbench now, and we can see here that we've got post-score recommender.AI that we are going to pull. We have got that version 004 and recommender. And remember that this is case sensitive, so if I was to come back here, you will see it says recommender, and it's recommender with a lowercase, and it's 004, so we will want to change that to 004 now. This properties file, plugin.properties, is used by the plugin to go and retrieve the correct project, and the step, and the version from the ecosystem server environment. The next thing to do is to go to the Tools menu. Under the Tools menu, you will notice that there are two menu options added. And the first menu option is just the project, so that you can pull and push your code. And the second one is to generate and to build, the same way that you would press the generate and build buttons on or inside the workbench. So, let's do the first thing. We want to pull the classes. When we select pull, you will notice in the event log that a whole lot of sequences will appear. And it'll show you that you can get the project, pull the project, and prepare the project. And it then tells you that you must refresh the project so that you can see your code. So, you'll see that it hasn't appeared in the tree just yet. When you click refresh, you'll notice now that it'll show that it's created a number of files you see here. It's got the recommender.AI. Now, if you go to Workbench, you'll notice that we call this class recommender.AI. So, if you go to post-score class, you will see here that it's called that. And if we open it, you'll see it's got post-score 1, as we've got defined on the server. The other thing you will notice here is that because product master already existed in the project tree, you will see that it's made a copy of the old version and created a new one for you so that you always have access to the previous versions immediately, without having to go to your version control. What you probably would do later on is either keep them because it won't affect your Java compilation, or you could then delete them if you don't need them. Now the thing to do is just to show you how you can make changes locally and run your code and push it up. If we're going to make changes, or if you make a mistake locally, what you will notice is that you can use all the standard IntelliJ features to check that your code is compiling. What I'm going to be doing here is just go to Run and Edit Configurations, and we're going to go add an application so we can run it locally. I'm going to call my application Recommender. And we're going to pick our main class, which you will see that will appear automatically after it's searched through the entire project. And there is the local build main class that appears. And all you have to do now is to select that, and we will be able to run the project at this time. Now, if you just go straight debug, you will see that it will compile and run the project. Even though many of the dependencies have not been set, the way that this is configured is that you can still start it up and at least see what happens on the UI. So if we go back to the browser and we go search for localhost 8091, that's where it started. You will see that our project is running now. And you can see there that it's accessing the API endpoints from whatever the browser link is that you have used. In this case, it's just started it up on the local environment. Now you will be doing some work in here, and you can check your code and do debugging and all the other things that you normally would do to get your code to work for you. And once you are done with your code, you can now push it back up to the server so that you can see whether we will just need to make a change here. Test, post score, edit it locally. Now, what you will want to do is you will want to go to your Tools option. And we're going to go to Project, and we're going to push the classes up. So if you keep an eye again on your event log, you will see that it's gone through all the steps to prepare the code that has gone to the server. If we go back to our workbench now, you will see here it still says test score 1. So what we want to do is refresh our project. So I'm just going to refresh it now, then select 4. And if I go back to my code, it is edited locally. That means that I've been able to make the changes locally and push the code up to the server. Now, what I wanted to do is make one more change. I want to say, edited in Workbench. So once you have edited it in the Workbench, and you want to pull the code again, you will see that we have got our existing class there. So, Tools, Project, Pull Plugin Classes. Now we will give it just a moment, and keep an eye on the event log. It shows that it's bringing that in, and it's bringing the product in. I refresh my tree again, and you'll see it's now created a copy of my previous version. And I've got my new version there, and it says, edited in Workbench. That means that I can do full round-trip editing while keeping the backups of the previous code that I've edited. Once you have done this, and you feel that you are ready to get your project built and deployed, you can then just go generate your runtime. And that will use your server selection, whichever server you are connecting to generate it. You will probably want to keep an eye inside the workbench as to what the messaging looks like. You will get an email that it is done. Well, that it's completed the messaging. And then, once you build it, you will also get an email that it's done. The same way that you would do it through the workbench as normal. You could also just generate and build through the workbench itself, if you wanted to do that. This has been a tutorial on how to edit your code inside IntelliJ.